How much of a character do you understand before they even say a single line, just by what they're wearing? Today, we're talking with Dona Adrian Gibson. She's a costume designer whose credits includes HBO We Own the City, FX's Justified City Primeval, and most recently, Moses the Black. Also, she's got a Habit series and a little-known series called The Wire. We're getting into costume as story, how you build a world, signal character arcs, and the work to keep things authentic. Produced by Allegory Productions, and we'll name this agency later, this is the opening scene with Cam Lawson and Dona Adrian Gibson. Well, Dona, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to get into this conversation for a role that a lot of people just probably overlook, don't think about, but it's super, super important. So I think every single scene that shows up on camera, and I think you're the best person to talk about it.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
We're going to get started, but really quick, we're going to have some quick speed, rapid fire questions, if you will.
Okay.
Just to have some fun, just to open up.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. Question number 1. When you design a lead character, what do you start with?
After I've read the script and I have an idea pretty much who they are going to portray, a lot of times I'll have a conversation with the writer because I need more depth or of a character understanding of, where this character is coming from and where they're going, essentially. And then I talk to the actor because I feel like it's definitely a collaboration. I come to the table with ideas of how I see it after I've read the script, because pretty much as I'm reading it, I do pretty much imagine who this person is. I mean, I just see them in my mind, and then I just want to be sure that I have the same idea that the actor has. A lot of times it's the same. Sometimes it's a little different. They might be like, I kind of saw that I'd be, this way or that, and so it's kind of
Conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation.
Okay. When a director says make it feel expensive, do you solve that with a fit, fabric, or removing something?
It just depends, probably on the budget. Because if, they want me to make it feel expensive, if we have money, I can make it feel really expensive because I have the money to do that. And it's going to be probably just, a really well-made garment, and maybe it's going to be built from scratch, which I tend to like to do whenever possible, because I can definitely do that for far less than buying like a designer piece that's going to fit very well and yeah.
Okay. On a shoot day, where do you spend most of your time?
It just depends on the project. I do like to be on set. I have to be on the set to establish a character if it's the first time that we're seeing them. But a lot of times I don't have the luxury of being on set because I'm maybe in fittings or I am shopping for a character. Just especially in episodic, it just doesn't really lend itself for me to be. I can't be on the set all day long.
If you had your preference, would you work in TV or film? TV series or film?
TV.
Why?
I guess because I really cultivated my career in television. I'm really used to the pace. It's a pretty quick pace. Now, maybe not quick as some, because I've heard that Tyler Perry shoots like an insane amount of pages a day. But I think the most pages I've shot in a day is like 11, and that's quite a few. A lot of changes. It might be a lot of location changes, but I think because I was reared in that environment, it's in my blood. A film, when I go to a film set, it's like, oh, we're going to shoot 3 pages today. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's like, it's nothing. But, so, I mean, it's an okay pace, but I'll take television over that.
You love the fast-paced nature of it?
I do. It's just, you're constantly making decisions, they're throwing things at you that maybe weren't expected. Oh, we're going to add this scene today, and maybe you're not completely prepared for it. And then you can maybe find it within the warehouse of clothing that already exists, hopefully. You don't have to send somebody out to try to shop for it. But, yeah, I find that exciting.
You mentioned that you kind of reared inside the TV series world, and that's where you kind of got your start, your footing. You got a lot of opportunities in your
I did.
IMDb page reads TV series left and right, limited series left and right,
It
and
does.
it's a wide range. It's historical, it's like biographical, if you will. It's just kind of like fictional, non-fictional as well. I believe you kind of got your start in The Wire or sometime before that, but you had a prominent role in The Wire.
Yeah, I did. Well, actually, my first opportunity on a television set was Homicide: Life on the Street, and I
Okay.
came in as a day player. And my very best friend, who rest in peace, Randy Lee, he was a set decorator, and he was like, "I think that this would be something really good for you," because prior to that, I had just been working in theater, and designing clothes. And I went to the film set, to the homicide set, and the first thing that I saw was the call sheet, and there were like, I don't know, 100 names on the back, and I was like, I'm in, because all of these people are going to make this happen. And I was really engaged in that. I thought, this is just, this is great. And then I watched it all unfold. Um, Homicide was in its last season, so I didn't have a lot of opportunities, but I did work there maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. And then I worked on The Corner, which was David Simon also.
Mm.
David Simon and Ed Burns co-wrote that book, and then it was a miniseries on HBO. And from that, The Wire, I wouldn't say was born, but that was the next project.
Yeah, I remember hearing that's like the genesis of like where The Wire kind of grew out of.
Well, it was, it's pretty much the same content, except, The Corner focused on one family, which was all drug addicted. And those people actually made their way onto The Wire in different job roles. Actually, 2 of the sons were characters in the show, because, I think that's another thing. I know this is kind of off topic a little bit, but David Simon and Ed Burns both would use actual real people. And I think that really helped to generate a more authentic feeling in the show.
I think that's the thing that resonates with a lot of people with The Wire, is just how real it feels. And I think a lot of conversations are starting to come up about The Wire, like because it felt so real, it's also had like a certain positive but also negative impact on Baltimore.
Yep.
But as far as the work that you did on The Wire, I'm curious about just like the practical challenges when it came to actually for 6 seasons, I think you were 5 seasons that you're running on there.
Yeah, well, the thing about my experience there is, my trajectory was very far reaching. I started season 1 as the key costumer. So I was on set with all of the principal actors. And then season 2, I actually worked in the shop, and I was a tailor and just did, maintenance in the, it's a lot to maintain, because, in a series, as the episodes change, you're bringing, the last episode in, and you're laundering those clothes or having them dry cleaned, or, recycling them possibly for that very next episode. And it's, it's more than a notion, I'm telling you. And then season 3, I actually was promoted to supervise. And that's what I did, season 4 and season 5. But Alonzo Wilson, who was the costume designer, he was incredibly generous. And it was great, because he allowed me to, hey, I might pick a tie for somebody or whatever. He's like, oh, you can do that, which was great. And that kind of gave me, I guess, the idea that maybe that was something I wanted to do. And because initially I didn't go into TV and film thinking I want to be a costume designer.
What was your initial
I
desire?
don't know. I just wanted to be a part of it. And so, I think that I had the opportunity to work. I didn't work as a PA, which is probably the first step. I never worked as a production assistant, but I did work as a set costumer on The Corner. That's how I came in. And I think to know every job has made me a better costume designer, because I understand what each role is, and I respect every role.
Yeah. And for someone who hasn't even stepped foot inside the costume department, if you will, and to your point, know every single role, I'm curious, what do you think they miss? Like, what's the big misconception about costume designers, just even the department?
That it's glamorous. The dressing people is glamorous. And I think it's fun, because, here's the thing. Even when I was growing up, and, for anybody who is of a certain age, they would know the Carol Burnett show, or they would know Sonny and Cher, because those variety shows were nothing but costume. Like every single scene in that was like a different fabulous costume and a character. And I'd never really thought about who's dressing the people, you know, on television. I was more drawn to, I want to be on 7th Avenue. People think that it's all, you know, fun, and it's not. I mean, it's a lot of hard work.
Beyond the set, or I mean, on the set and beyond the set?
I mean, you know, you think about the fact that, okay, say on The Wire, we shot an episode in 11 days, and that's for 1 hour. And you're working a minimum 12-hour day. I mean, for the most part, I mean, we'd be on set, definitely 14, 15 hours. I mean, there might be an 18-hour day in there. And that's not for the faint of heart, you know, because you're working all the time. Like, you don't just be over there doing nothing, because it's like there's always something to do.
What are some of the things that are happening in that department that most people just don't know? You know, to your point, they might just see like, oh, like you put the clothes on the character's back and you get to sit there and don't have to worry about anything anymore.
No. So the costume designer is choosing the looks, and they're on to the next. I mean, you're shooting a scene, they're looking at tomorrow, the day after that, maybe, you know, into the next episode, as is the assistant costume designer. You know, you have someone that's in the office who's probably managing the coming and going of costumes, you know, whether they're offloading and breaking down, you know, the last episode that was shot, having it laundered, having it cleaned, having it all put back into the closet of the character. You have the costume supervisor who's managing everything, including the costume designer, you know, for the most part, I think. I mean, I like to have a supervisor that manages me simply to keep an eye on the budget, you know, and I have a couple of really good ones who are like, we're not spending that money. And I'm like, you know, I got to plead my case. And, you know, sometimes I win and sometimes I don't, you know, but I do respect that. You know, I'm not going to just do what I want just for the sake of whatever, because the budget is part of it too, you know, and a lot of people don't care about the budget, but it makes a difference, and it probably also could help you get rehired. But there is, the people on set are like the last line of defense, you know, and in terms of, I've seen shows where it might have like the sticker that's on the jeans. It's like, somebody was not, I wonder if they still got a job, because that's your job.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're on set, your job is to make sure that that person is however they need to be. Now, mind you, everything doesn't have to be perfect, because maybe it's 10 o'clock at night and you should not look pristine, or it's maybe it's 3 a.m. on set, but it's really 7 o'clock in the morning in the show. So yeah, that shirt should be crisp. And maybe they have been in their trailer for 2 hours sleeping in that shirt. Well, you know, don't miss that.
How many times do you find yourself reading the script before you feel like you're able to understand how to dress a character or design the character's life in clothing?
Well, I always try to read it once without really attributing anything, but it's challenging, because as I'm reading it, I'm defining who this person is, but I really try to allow myself to read it at least once. And then when I go back and read it, begin to define who this person is. But I can't put a label on how many times, because sometimes I just read it again and again.
Yeah. Are you looking for anything in particular for you that stands out? Like, I'm sure location managers are looking at how many times they see interior, exterior, they're running left and right.
I mean, yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. But I think I'm really trying to understand the evolution of the character and just, what their arc is and how that's reflected in their clothing. So, and it just depends on what the arc is. I mean, you could say something easy like, they're flying high and then they're destitute. That's easy. But, if they're experiencing happiness or sorrow, but again, that's why I feel like it's so important to just collaborate with the writer, because that's the person who can really give me a direction about who that person is and where that person is headed. And if they're on the same page as I am of what I'm presenting, but I think it could be. And it's never like, oh, it's got to be this way. I'm definitely not that. I'm very collaborative. So
You actually have a lot of conversations to figure out what's not on the page, it sounds like.
absolutely.
Yeah, the backstory,
Yeah,
like where
yeah.
they're going, that type of
Mhm.
situation.
Yep.
How do you I'm sure that's like part of your preparation, but how do you practice for a role like this?
For a role like,
For costume designing?
how do you practice? I mean, again, I think it's like an evolution. The same way I just kind of came into it. I think that I just, having worked in this business for probably 30 years, I saw all different sides of it. And I think that I liked managing the department, but then I realized that I was doing myself a disservice by not allowing myself more creative opportunity. And once I yielded to that, I was like, well, yeah, that's what's up. Especially when I get to bring in my design to the work, as far as, I sew and I design clothes. So on Justified, Ingenue Ellis Taylor, I got to pretty much create everything she wore.
Mm.
I mean, I didn't build it, but I designed it. And then I had a team of people that could make it. I got to pick the fabrics out. It was wonderful.
It sounds like you enjoy that
Oh, I
process
loved it. It
beyond
was
like
great.
going to the
Yeah.
store and like
Yeah.
buying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's okay too, but yeah, absolutely.
What's
That was
the
like full throttle.
I'm gonna say, is it the fulfillment of like being able to just be that creative, like in the hands-on process of it, as opposed to again like just going to the store, like you are literally picking the fabrics, you're picking the colors, you're picking how
Yeah.
it matches.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's kind of hard to defy that. But at the same time, it's also an incredible feeling when I'm walking through a store and I'm like, oh, my God, that's it. Like, that's so and so. Like, you just see it and you know. And that's, yeah. I mean, I've taken a t-shirt and made it into a tank top, because like that, I like the print, I like the fabric, but I needed it to be something else. So,
Is the budget dictating that a lot as far as whether or not you're able to truly design it as opposed to go to the store, or is that your own like creative input?
I mean, everything has a budget, and the largest budget I've had is like $350,000, and that was great. We were like rolling,
What was that on?
Justified.
Okay.
Hmm. And so we were really able to we could pretty much buy whatever we wanted to. And that was really nice. But it's also nice to have constraints because I feel like it helps you to cultivate um, and be more creative.
Mhm.
And, when you have to do more with less. Because, yeah, I like having, either or. And it's interesting because you think The Wire was 20 some years ago, and the budget for every episode was like $11,000. That's nothing. But we had a lot of product placement after season 2 and on. So that was great. And we had closets and closets of clothes that people were sending us.
Okay. You mentioned sometimes those creative constraints are really fun. Is there an example that stands out for you? I don't know if The Wire stands out, but you mentioned Justified, the 350 budget that just allowed you to kind of run wild.
Yes.
But then also the constraints of like maybe 11,000 per episode doesn't really allow you to do too much. Is there a show or film even that you could think about where a limited budget really
Yeah,
lets you have fun?
absolutely. I mean, so on Moses the Black, which is what I just did,
Mm-hmm.
we, after you read the script, the supervisor and I are basically going through the changes because you have to break a script down and determine how many script days there are, how many character changes you have. Some characters can. You basically want to create a closet for the character, whether you're on a film or whatever, because you can. It's like everyday life. You're gonna repeat. Like, I'm gonna wear this T-shirt on Monday, and I'm gonna wear it on next Monday or whatever. And when you know how many changes each character has, you can then pretty much determine what you want to anticipate the cost to be. And so I think that when we first broke the budget down, we were like, this is like $65,000. And the line producer was like, no, you have to
Trim that back.
take $20,000 off of that. So, how are we going to do that? And you have to determine, so you lessen everything, take things down a notch or two. And, it's creative shopping. So, kudos to the shoppers that are out there finding the deals on things, whether it's a sale or you just, shopping. I hate to say fast fashion, but maybe it is that, that looks expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, because in that case, a lot of the characters were showy. And so they needed to look like they had, and the jewelry. I remember I came back and I had like $3,000 worth of not real jewelry. And the supervisor, she was undone. But, it worked out. It worked out. But, I mean, they needed all this drip.
Yeah.
And so.
But also in Moses in the Black, it's the drip that they had, but also you go back in like biblical times too. So it's like clashing those
We got to make
worlds.
all of that, which was wonderful. So
Okay, I was about to ask you, was that like
very
more so the
exciting.
shopping? Because that might be tough to
No,
find.
yeah, no. Well, it's all about texture, the
Mm-hmm.
fabric, and color. And I collaborated with the director on that. And then I had actually was able to afford a really good friend of mine the opportunity to create it, to build it, because it would be less expensive to just give that job to one person rather than try to bring in, a union crew to build that over a week. That would cost thousands of dollars. And so we were able to, give that job to one person on a freelance basis, and it was great.
So Donna, before the break, we were talking about Moses in the Black and just the uniqueness of that show. But you also mentioned Justified previously. And I wanted to dive just a little bit deeper into that because that's also slightly unique in that it was slightly like a reboot of a series revival, but it has a fan base that's attached to it already. And when you're building out that world, I think sometimes, you want to put your own creative spin on it when it comes to costume designing. But also, you're honoring what was previously there in some way.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like the approach you take with it, or am I just putting my own thoughts into it?
I mean, I would say that I watched the original Justified series,
Mm-hmm.
and I did want to absorb elements of it, but the lead character was pretty much the only person I had to replicate other than one other, which was Walter Goggins. So Raylan Givens was played by Timothy Oliphant. And I reached out to him and I just, asked him. I was like, so he still had his original boots from the first series, and they were Lucchese. So he was able to give me a screenshot of all of the dimensions of the boots. So I contacted Lucchese and I was like, hey, can we do these boots? And I need them like really quick. And they actually turned them around really quickly for us because I think their turnaround is like 10 weeks usually to manufacture a pair of boots. We went to the same hat maker to get him his hat. And I just was like, so what kind of jeans do you like to wear? And what kind of shirts do you like to wear? And it was Billy Reed jeans. So that's all he wore. I just got him any color in that. And, I was able to have some fun and introduce some things to him that were new, but the character was still pretty much in the same line. I mean, he was older, so we wanted to make him a little more mature. But again, it was a collaborative process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with Walter Goggins, he gave me a lot of direction. But it was funny because I actually found his, he just was in some jeans and I got his vest like in a thrift store, and like a Banana Republic shirt and some, I'm trying to think of the shoes. I can't remember the name of the maker, but anyway, yeah. And he was like, "Yeah, this is it," So that was easy. And everybody else was kind of, I had to define them on who that character was. And I was telling you, like with Ingenue, we were able to actually build a lot of her clothes. It's interesting because the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that it's not only up to me. The producers definitely have a say, and they're weighing in. So we're doing fittings, we're taking pictures, and you submit these, and they're like, we like this, and we don't like that. And with Ingenue, she's got a beautiful shape, and everybody doesn't understand that. So they wanted me initially to put her in a lot of black and dark colors. And she was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And I mean, like, she had her manager contact them and everything. And so that was great because it opened up a whole world for us. And being able to, really, and I collaborated with her too. I brought in fabrics and we would look at them together and I say, this is what I think I want it to be. And she was like, I really like that, or I don't like that. And, so yeah, it was great. I had a lot of fun.
I know it varies, but just in the collaboration, I'll use Justified. How early are these conversations happening before, like, you're like, are just a 3-month process of what you're going through? Do you only have like 2 weeks to do this? Or
No, yeah, not even that sometimes. I mean, I might have 2 days. Yeah, yeah. But you remember, we're working really long days.
yeah, your 18-hour days sounds like they
So
get
it's like,
triggered.
yeah, right. And so I need this dress tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, because in terms of the evolution of a character, it's my perspective, but it's their perspective too. And so, where I may think that there is something happening at midnight and these are the clothes you had on, they want to change. Maybe they want to put something different on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, because this, this is my mindset. And I went home and I did this. And I'm like, so yeah.
You've worked on a lot of different shows and films. Do you have a favorite character that you had to design? I guess might be the best word to use.
I mean, I guess it would have to be Ingenue, Carolyn. I really enjoyed that because I had so much freedom and we made probably 80% of her outfits. So, yeah, I had so much freedom and liberty, and it was such a collaborative, creative effort that I have not had that same experience yet. But, everybody's different and every character is different. So it's kind of hard to say, but I think I had the most freedom with her so far.
Yeah. And gave you the most. That's what probably stood out to you, is the freedom of
Yeah.
creation at that point.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of different times about the shift that a character goes through that you're looking for, the arc that they go through. I'm curious if we'll stick with Ingenue's role in Justified. Like, how did you represent that in clothing? Was it a color that she's wearing? Was it the material that she's wearing? Something else?
No, I think that, the line that she walked was, she was an attorney. And so her clothes were very sharp and austere. But then, she kind of dissolves into this romantic relationship with the lead character, Raylan Givens. And so when she was portrayed in those instances, it was a softer side always. She wasn't in clothes that were as severe. So, I mean, maybe a more muted palette, but the clothes were definitely softer.
Okay. I would jump to We Own the City.
Okay.
And maybe just The Wire as well. I'm just thinking about shows just in general that might stand out for like guiding principles that you're using on pretty much every single show when it comes to wardrobe.
I have to say that for me, The Wire was definitely my training ground, and because it was so real, it's really difficult for me to veer away from that. So that is always, for me, the number one thing is that it needs to look realistic. Things like Justify was stylized in many ways, and We Own This City was not, and neither was The Wire. I mean, you might have had moments where people were high styled, but they were still true to the character that they were. And I love realism, so much. And just for people to look like they are who they really are. I mean, I strive for that. So, and I feel like I've achieved that, certainly in We Own This City. I thought that people were realistic. And what's interesting about that show is that covered a decade of clothing, pretty much. Maybe even actually more, because I feel like it went back as far as 2005. So, we were so specific about that, down to the sneakers. Then that, we found a resource that was able to provide us with sneakers that were from that era all the way through, 2015. So that was great.
If you're having a conversation with a young costume designer or desires to have that career path, what's the advice you might be giving them today? With, I'm sure, the landscape looking and feeling so different now.
Yeah, the landscape is very different. I think that, um, you know, eh, realism. And if you can just try to replicate, textures and colors from an era, particularly, I mean, when you're doing present day, that's not so challenging because it's right in front of you. But when you have to reach back into time, research, of course, is imperative, but if you really want the clothes to resonate, I think it's imperative that you do your research to understand, maybe what color Pantone had out that season or what the colors were, because it's pretty consistent that, like you can go to a Walmart or you can go to a Macy's and the color palette for the season is going to be there no matter what, like, oh, today it's sage and rose or whatever. And you're going to see that always in that year. And, that research is available to see what the color palettes were and textures. And, I, I like authenticity. It just depends, I guess, on, what your style is.
You mentioned your favorite character, Ingenue from Justified. What's your favorite?
Well, I loved Raylan too now.
Okay. What's your favorite project that you worked on?
My next one. No, I don't know.
That could be it. That could be it.
I like them all. I mean, once they're done, they're kind of done, but, I enjoy them all immensely.
Yeah. Is there a world you would like to revisit? Like if one of the shows you worked on before came back and say we're going to do another season, which one are you jumping into first? Yeah.
Wow.
Show on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because there's a thread for the wire that exists today. I mean, people just it's gotten me in rooms. It really has. I mean, who knew that show would be the juggernaut that it became? And people always are like, "Oh my God, it'd be so great if there was like another season or some kind of wrap up." I don't think they'll ever do that. I love stories that are about my hometown of Baltimore, Maryland. I'll do anything that has to do with that. I mean, now, does that really challenge me? Maybe a little bit. I mean, certainly if I did some kind of period thing, that would be great. But, I don't know. I'll take it as it comes.
I love that. Is there a question that I should have asked that I didn't?
I don't know. I guess what really brought me into this world, I guess, as I said, it was kind of happenstance because a really good friend of mine introduced me to film and TV, or to television, I guess I should say. But, I've always been creative. I learned to knit and crochet at like the second grade. I just remember that. And I've carried those skills today. And, I guess I always thought I would do something that was in the creative field. And I'm just blessed to be able to do that.
So, in your opinion, what is the difference between dressing a character and telling a story through wardrobes?
Well, I mean, anybody could dress a character. You can just put clothes on somebody. But if you're telling their story, okay, I'll use Bubbles, for example, from The Wire, because, I loved him because he was so abstract, but and he had style, even though he really didn't have any money. But you could tell that he was, I hate to say a drug addict, but he just was. I mean, like, even though he had some of the craziest outfits, but let me just tell you this one story. So when we were shooting the pilot, he was in character 100%, and he was at the craft service table. And the security guard was like, "Nah, man, you can't be here." And that's like the greatest compliment, because he really was
In character.
Yeah, he was in character, and his clothes represented that. And I think that that's really important. If you can if you can nail that, I mean, that's what everybody's looking for. The producers, the director, me, the actor. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. He's actually one of my favorite characters.
Okay. Yeah, he was great.
I like the way that he embodied his character. And to
Mhm.
your point, with the wardrobe,
And his
definitely
evolution,
showed that. Yes, exactly.
which reflected in his clothing. Because then, once he got clean, he wasn't so scruffy anymore.
Yeah.
He had style when he was scruffy, though.
A lot. So North Star, right? What would be like a time period that you have like a desire, maybe design a costume for?
Wow. Well, I don't know. I love the 18th century. I just do. I mean, I must have been living there at some point because sometimes I'll just like put on symphonic music from that era and I can zone out in that. But I also like the 30s and the 40s. So, yeah, that would be ideal. The 60s too, the 70s and the 80s.
One final question.
Mhm.
Something that you had said, in I should say like our pre-interview form that you filled out. It says you want to talk about the journey, and I'm curious if when you're standing on stage accepting awards for your costume design, and you start talking about your journey, what are you saying?
Well, I thank God I'm alive, of course, but I would have to thank my father who encouraged me to do what I do best because I come from a family of attorneys and I don't know, I guess that's what I thought I was going to be doing, right? And he was like, do what you do best. You have to do what you love. And that's the best advice I ever got. So, because I do what I love. And yeah, they say if you do what you love, you don't work a single day. And it really does feel like that. Work is easy for me in that regard. I mean, it's not to say that there aren't challenging days or long days or difficult days because they are, but that helps you to develop character in yourself.
As you develop other people's characters on screen.
Yes.
I like it. Well, Donna, thank you so
Well, thank
much.
you.
This has been
It was
awesome.
a pleasure.
Awesome.
It really was.
I
Thank you
loved
so
it.
much for having me.
Of course. We'll have to have it again.
Okay.
All right.